participants, which I guess.
Yep, that's
Okay.
you and me. So welcome everybody that's joining us. Sorry that we're running a little late. Technical difficulties are always fun.
Yeah, I see the number going up.
Yeah. So we could hypothetically say that we're starting later because it's still light out, right? We didn't want to come in yet. So again, for those that are joining us, welcome. And we hopefully will get started soon. Just a couple technical difficulties on the part of our wonderful presenter with added firewalls that work just put in today. So we're working through it. So Andy, your connection is a little, your picture keeps kind of like wobbling.
Yeah, I see that. I don't know why.
It's weird.
No, nobody wants to look at me anyway.
Hey. So I thought today was going to be a complete wash with the rain this morning, but it actually turned around pretty nicely. It's a good afternoon. And tomorrow's supposed to be gorgeous. Excited about that.
Yeah, I've got to go check on our harvest tomorrow.
Ah, very good. Going back up there.
I think they've taken the equipment out, but I need to check on that tomorrow. And
excellent.
I see we're up to 62.
And again, welcome everybody that's joining us. We're going to get started in a little bit. We're just waiting on our presenters having a little bit of technical difficulties with new added firewalls that work and decided to install today. Couldn't wait till tomorrow, had to do it today. So hopefully he'll be with us soon. I think what we'll do, maybe in less than a minute, Andy, you and I can run through this part so that when Paul does show up, then we could just get right into his thing.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with my presentation here.
Yeah, it's really weird. You're kind of wobbly.
Go back to
the old computer. So it was fine before. Yeah, right. Yeah. You don't like that new one, so there you go. It's crazy.
I can switch to the other one easily enough.
Yeah. Well, wait until we're done, then you can switch over if you want. Right now, just
then it won't
everybody.
Matter.
Then it won't matter. That's true.
Up to 72.
So what do you think? You want to go through the quick introduction for everybody? And then
sure, why don't we do
hopefully
that?
Paul will join us soon. Okay, so I'm going to just do my little thing real quick. So welcome everybody to this month's Backyard Forestry in 90 minutes online. We're still doing online. We're happy that you're here. My name is Lori Jensen. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Forestry Association. And just a couple little housekeeping things is that we will take questions at the end of the presentation. So feel free to pop your questions in the Q&A in the box on the bottom at any time during the presentation, and we will address them at the end. Also, please stop by and say hi to us in the chat. Once we get started, I will monitor the chat and can answer any questions you may have or just say hi. So chat for chatting and then Q&A for questions that we will direct towards the end. And Paul's coming, so we're going to go quick. Andy, how are you today?
Hello, everybody. Well, welcome to our monthly presentation of Backyard Forestry. Glad to have everybody on board. I see we're up to 75 people now. It's great. We really enjoy being able to reach out to as many people as we can through this this event, and it's been a good presentation for us. So thank you all for joining us.
And then you want to talk about how we do this every month or Thursday
sure, yeah,
month, right?
That's good. Let's move right along.
Hey, Lori.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Okay, but it's saying that it won't let me do the video.
Okay, let's see if I can help you share. Okay. And you should be able to now. We're going to get through like 2 slides and then I'll introduce you and then we'll work on sharing your screen. Okay. And you may not be able to, Paul, because I'm sharing my screen right now. Okay. So 2 seconds. So keep going, Andy.
Okay, next slide.
All right, here we go.
Okay, it's probably something everybody's familiar with, the New Jersey Forestry Association. You know, we are we're a nonprofit organization, been around for a while, and we like to be the voice of woodland owners in New Jersey. We also go beyond that. We do encourage people, if you are not a member, we would like you to join. There will be some member-only meetings coming up where we'll be talking about some things that are of particular interest to woodland owners. But we do encourage people to join to be able to get hold of our newsletter and to hear more of the things that are going on. So some of the benefits, as I just mentioned, the newsletter, we have our website, the annual meeting, and we're still trying to determine what we're going to do. Last couple of years, because the pandemic's been a little tough, we'll be having a meeting next week to decide where we're going with this year's annual meeting. And we'll be getting all that information out to people as soon as we can. Same thing with the Woodland Stewards program. The last couple of years have been a little tough. We usually are away for 3.5 days in the woods, actually doing some interesting things. Last year, we spent 1 day in the woods rather than the 3.5. Not quite sure we're going to do this year. That's still under discussion. Backyard Forestry in 90 minutes, of course, is what we're doing now. We do represent landowners in their efforts to practice good stewardship. Part of what we've done also recently with the legislative monitoring, we've joined the Green Industry Council, and actually there are several pieces of legislation that are very important to woodland owners and people who are interested in the forest as well. Some very, very interesting legislation that's going on right now that we are monitoring. So even if you are not a woodland owner, there are things that we do that support everybody. You know, the fresh air, clean water, recreation, wildlife habitat, forestry education, which is what we're doing tonight. So there are a lot of benefits to being someone, even if you are not a woodland owner.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Okay.
So I'll take over from here by having the distinct pleasure of introducing our presenter tonight. So Paul Kurtz is an entomologist with the New Jersey Department of Agriculture. I've known Paul for years. I'm just going to say it, Paul, because I know I say this all the time with you, but years, well, at least a year or so before spotted lanternfly was even a thing in New Jersey, he came to me and said, there's something we need to keep an eye on. And I kind of laughed him off, right? Well, he was right. So when Paul says something, listen to him because he knows what he's talking about. So Paul, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you being here tonight. And I'll stop talking and I'll stop sharing my screen so we can hopefully have you share yours.
Okay, do you see me? Oh, there it is.
I see you. Yep.
Trying to figure out where my camera was because I'm in a different place.
Got it. Yeah. And I know you had technical difficulties with that upgrade today. So we're just glad you're here.
I'm on a different computer because I couldn't get through.
Wow. Crazy. Okay. It's working. You look great.
Okay. This is as good as we're going to get right now. So let's get real stuff.
Okay. Looking good.
In that. Okay, slideshow. Okay, so I got.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay, good.
And I don't know, because we're seeing this stuff on the side. So I don't know, can you see if you can do from beginning again? I'm not sure if it's going to do it or not. Because we're seeing, like your view.
You're seeing all the other stuff.
Yeah, we're seeing all the other slides on the side. We can tell what's coming next.
Oh, and am I surprised? Let's see if I do this.
Oh, this is good enough. Just we can talk with this right here.
Yeah, that one's spotted too.
Oh, so cute. Was this the troublemaker one? I should be quiet and let you figure out what you're doing.
This is my computer, but I don't usually use this.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's going to go, oh my God, what kind of stuff do you have on your computer?
Everybody close your eyes.
Okay, this one should be.
So I should also say that Paul is really good about giving advice on some really cool dog toys. So he's never wrong.
That's because I have a big jerky one behind me. Two things. My mail, especially my W-2s. Okay, we're back to where I should have been.
Okay.
Go over some of our current strategies.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute, Paul. We're still seeing the cute puppy.
Oh, why?
So try share screen, maybe. I mean, again, we're fine looking at the puppy, but
Oh, that's data. I wonder why that one is there. Okay. Very odd. Oh, my why is it there? Stop video.
I do see PowerPoint as an icon on the bottom of that screen. Ah, I see a nice presentation.
But it's this one right here that I'm in. Okay. I think it's because I use dual screens. And you're still seeing with all the stuff on the side.
We
right?
are seeing stuff on the side, yeah. But I mean, it's not the end of the world.
I'm seeing it on this screen because I said I'm using dual screens.
Mm.
The easy way and just unplug this screen. So now we're stuck with
And for people that are with us, I do see that there's some stuff in the chat. I will address that momentarily. So again, just a reminder, we'll take questions at the end, if that's okay with Paul. So just pop them in the Q&A for now. And chat, I will chat with you shortly. How's that?
Are you guys seeing my screen?
Nope, it just went away. It was up there. Try again.
Yes.
Okay,
There
it
you
is
go.
perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Okay, so I thought that was going to be funny. So we're going to cover, current strategies and control options. We don't usually have this much trouble. And I thought, since today is St. Patrick's Day, why aren't there any spotted lanternfly in Ireland? And St. Patrick drove them out, as long as William Wallace later on. We got the rest of them. So just so you know, it's a little known fact, but so spotted lanternfly is a plant hopper from Asia, specifically found in China, India, Vietnam, South Korea, Japan, and US. So the last three were introduced to those countries. We're getting, we share a lot of information with South Korea because they're, experiencing a lot of the same things, especially on like, grapes and other crops. So, we look to them because they've gotten it earlier than us. So this family is in the Phagoridae, and it's under the order of Hemiptera. So it is a true bug. What's interesting is that we do have Phagorids or lanternflies in the US. I think there's around 12 or 13, but most of them are down in Texas, southern part of states. And they're not as showy and pretty as the ones that, we see in other countries. Like most hemipterans, they do feed by using their piercing and sucking mouth parts. And so when we're looking at current distribution, so we are looking at 34 counties in Pennsylvania. We have only 13 of our 21 in New Jersey are under quarantine. And currently we have 11 states that have been detected populations. And then we also have where we have regulatory incidents in other states. So once in a while, you will see that on the news, like the one out in Nebraska where the kid found one. And just because it was one doesn't mean that, we have a full population. This is our current distribution of SLF in the US right now. And if you notice, I know everyone asked me about Cape May. Well, we have found populations there as well. So as far as New Jersey, it's all of New Jersey. We're seeing it all over. And this is our current map for our quarantine. And as you can see, it kind of goes over up in here and then around. North part and the south part, are not under quarantine. That's because of its proximity to Pennsylvania, which, is where we got it initially. However, that quarantine does impact, all of New Jersey. It limits the movement of articles from inside and outside the quarantine, including any means of conveyance. So, and I'm talking everything from boats, when you think about boats in the that are stored over the winter in other parts of the state or even other parts of the US, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and then come to the Jersey Shore. Anything can bring these creatures on them, whether they're nymph or egg or adult. They're easily traveled. So permits, what we want all businesses to register and take the class to be permitted. And it's what's regulated under these permits is any life stage of spotted lanternfly, landscaping, remodeling, construction waste, firewood, packing material. And I always think of, plants are pretty, are on the obvious ones, but then you think about outdoor stuff. And that can be grills, it can be lawn furniture. Think of it, if you do have a secondary home, if you're moving those things around, they're great ways to move the lanternfly and their eggs. This was my map. On the right is what we use as far as the application on the website for reporting. And when you see that, you go, oh my God. However, because they are large parts or large dots that make this up, we went up processing it through the GIS, and on the left is what you're really seeing. That is the the true kind of impact right now of lanternfly and population size. This is reporting. When I go through these and randomly look, because I'm not going to look at all almost 13,000 reports, but every time, even the ones out in the water that I look at, when they attach a picture, it's always a lanternfly. So I'd have to say our public is doing a really good job reporting. I do appreciate that. We are adding a couple little features for this year's, just to detail. To do our data a little bit better in the collection. But what did we learn from 2021? Nothing that was really big. We came with the idea that we are looking at this, August 3rd was our highest, our peak. And that's what we'd expect, because adults came out right around the 21st. And by the time, people start seeing them, and then you hit that top peak and then come on down. So we are, within what we would expect as far as, adults, nymphs, and then, egg laying. But what I did find kind of interesting, and this is where I'm changing it a little bit, is almost 75% of all reports came in from the residential. I'm breaking that down into residential and business for next year and eliminating other, because that may be, giving a little bit of skewed data here. But, we didn't get a ton as far as when you're looking at farms. That was 1.5%, and then ports, it was just over, again, just over 1.5%. So between the two, just over 3%. We do a lot of work there, so that's kind of good. So what are we going to be doing this year, and how are we changing our response, knowing what we know from the past year? So we're looking at transportation hubs, the seaports, the airports, railroads, and commercial trucking as ways that this insect can travel outside of New Jersey and, potentially get a foothold in other states. And other states are concerned, for this to impact their, their crops and other for both agricultural commodities and just generally everything. They are very I don't even know what the word is. They're everywhere. I feel like lanternflies, that Star Trek had it correctly the first when they did that trouble with tribbles, and they are the tribbles of our generation. So what are we worried about in slowing the spread? Well, we want to get people to get back, and if you do have a business, get a permit. If you have a farm or anything like that, follow our best management practices coming from NJDA, USDA, Rutgers, Penn State. See what the best management practice for your particular crop, spraying and all that is, and within your means. Educate your staff. We ask you to, especially if you're shipping things out, inspect. This is, you need to look at the what you're shipping out, the truck, what's inside it, and if you need to, treat before it leaves, because then you will not have any issues for it when it arrives to a different state. Also look at your heavy machinery. We're looking at some kind of cranes that lift 100 and 500 tons, so they're pretty big. And to do your best if you're moving farm equipment or any equipment outside. And then waste disposal. What are you doing with that material? Whether it's cardboard boxes that came in that's laying around, or your pallets. What are you doing with that, and are you disposing it properly? Because our concern is the risk and consequences of not following these procedures is that we're seeing that Canada and California and Oregon are putting external quarantines on spotted lanternfly states, which is going to require phytosanitary inspections, as well as the phytosanitary certificate to go along with your material. And with that, you're going to get the additional costs for the inspection and the certificate, as well as potentially other treatments. So we're seeing this, how to do your best to reduce your costs, because this is going to be a possibility as we move forward. The next two things I see are the environmental impacts, and it's going to be for everybody, is sooty mold on personal property, whether it's your home or your car or anything that is left outside, especially under any trees. And I like this, and would thank Brian that when you're looking at training, NJDA staff went out and they're training with the shipping nurseries. And when you look at the top one, they are very difficult to see. They are very cryptic, but when I circle this and then come down here and go look right there, they are not easy, especially on the river birch. And when you're looking for something that blends in so well, it's going to take some time. Our staff found over 5,000 eggs on a 75-acre field with a 10 by 10 planting. So that's a lot of eggs when you think about how many insects then will hatch from them. It's that whole, again, trouble with tribbles. Some of the things to be aware of if you are a nursery owner. It's what we found in our key New Jersey hosts that they're finding the most currently can be your red maple. I know a little bit of silver as well, we're seeing it. And then river birch, willow, redbud, and sycamore are the top ones that they're finding more egg masses than other trees and shrubs on nursery stock. And the eggs are primarily laid around the branch collar on the trunk, along with the underside low branches. But like them, like the tribbles, they can be anywhere. So don't limit it to just look there. I would definitely look the entire tree over. It's a good thing that if you are digging them up and you can lay them on the side, no, none of us are using ladders or anything, but if you can see them, any of these trees, they're 12 foot. If you have it on the side, they're going to be much easier to inspect. And the one thing is scrape, scrape, scrape before anything leaves New Jersey. This is a modified paint roller. Took the paint roller off. It's become I think Ryan Reeder, this is his invention. And what they're using, because it's a nice soft edge on there, it won't rip up the bark and cause damage there. And it just crushes all those eggs in the egg mass. So, and it'll, saves your back because you can go up high, go low. It's kind of a clever way to, reduce populations. And again, mature trees, you're looking at 80–90% are above, 10 feet. The egg masses are above 10 feet. So when we're looking at, looking at your material, best thing is scouting. And you're going through all this stuff, and you're gonna probably have to do it in the beginning of the year, while they're egg masses, to see what you see and scrape off. And then, again, while, this to hit them chemically while they're out and about. And then again in the fall and winter to see if you're going to be, what percentage is left, as well as the, reducing numbers by scraping as well. But again, the inspection and, is going to be your key thing, as well with chemical treatment to reduce any, headaches down the line. So these are the adults. I'm sure most of you have seen them. They're an inch long. They have these hind wings right here that have the nice bright yellow. I mean, bright yellow, the bright red, and it's kind of the warning colors, and so that I probably don't taste very well. Adults, this is where you have the yellow or these bellies. This is a female. She has these two little red things here called valvifers. That's how you can tell quickly whether you have a male or female. Both of them will swell up as they feed. Their stomachs will swell up, but females are going to be larger, as well as her stomach will swell up because she's going to be carrying eggs as well as a full belly. So you'll see the difference. And if you're curious, just look at the bottom there, and you see those two red little bean-like shaped organs, then you have the female. Like anything, we encourage you to squash them. So egg masses contain 30 to 50 eggs in 4 to 7 vertical rows. And that's where I was saying, if we missed 5,000, if 5,000 were missed, they're shipped out. Now, if you look at 30 to 50 and go with just 40 times 5,000 is what, 200,000 potential insects leaving on one shipment. So it is really important to do that. Females can lay up to 3 egg masses. They're roughly an inch in size. And finally, I have my answer from this year, is this waxy material is a protein, kind of similar as far as, it's a protein, the Otheca as well. So kind of interesting on that. And these are your different, how you'll see them in the field. Uncovered, and they kind of have that bean, the actual egg is inside of here. And then you have this, it's partially covered, fully covered, and when this dries, it gets that muddy appearance. And these on the side have been, the nymphs have left, and they make that kind of oblong or so hole. And if you see anything with a nice perfectly round hole, I would be interested, just because that is showing something predated it, more likely a parasitoid wasp. So if you see anything in there, it's not it's a perfect round hole, you're definitely interested. And we're looking, to have people, whether it's, groups or whatever, maybe do a community scraping day. So plan your winter well next year and go on out. I have lots of scraper cards. I know that Lori has lots of scraper cards, so just hit us up if you need scraper cards, because we're more than happy to provide them. They're both in English and in Spanish. The nymphs, the first 3 instars are this black with the white spots, and then as it's feeding on the 3rd and into the 4th instar on Tree of Heaven, it's believed that the cytotoxic metabolites from Tree of Heaven actually start doing this change in the red for the nymph. And, you know, it also tells other creatures that, again, I am unpalatable. They have a much wider host range than the adults. And that's one of the things that we noticed here, is that you will see them mostly, especially in the first 3 instars, on very herbaceous, like this is sweet basil. We have it on tomatoes, a little bit of everything as far as their feeding. There are phloem feeder, and what happens is they'll stick their proboscis in. There's little hairs at the bottom to detect when it's in, you know, the phloem, and it will then start, you know, feeding from there and getting all those, you know, plant saps. What I think was fascinating from last year that had been talked about, and is that we have a couple things. They are not an early riser. They start really getting active around 10 a.m. So what does that mean for our growers? A lot of them like to spray early when the winds are not that much or nothing at all. Whereas as the later day, the heat builds up and you're going to get a little bit more wind. So this is going to tell you not to spray in the morning for these guys, but really go after them in the evening. The next one is that there seems to be a visual aggregation behavior, which when you see them and they're all clustered together, that's one of the signs. And it's also, you know, showing them if you get a tree that's a favorable tree, you'll see more on that tree, and that may lead them to go into that tree. And my personal, I think my nerdy self loves the fact that they somehow have a thermal signature. And this thermal signature is now, there's a potential because they have 3 different bacteria that have developed 3 separate organs in their body. And the bacteria are there to process the sap, the sugar, to make it into amino acids and proteins. So that thermal signature, like the elephant and the people and then the wolf there, shows up on these thermal imaging cameras or FLIR cameras. And they believe that may be from the actual the bacterial action of the, you know, of those organs that are making that heat. We'll see. Like I said, that's jury's still out, but you know, most insects are endothermic and not exothermic. So again, my fascination with these guys never ceases to amaze me, that once we think we know something, something else kind of pops up. So Tree of Heaven is what they evolved on. And 1789, it was brought into the United States, into Philadelphia. And so far, it is now pretty much all over the United States and Canada. And spotted lanternfly feeds on a variety of hosts, including fruit trees, ornamental trees, woody trees, vegetables, herbs, grains, and vines. So right now, the list is 172 species of woody herbaceous plants. And I guess the scary part we found out, and that was more like 2 years ago, is that it can complete its development without Tree of Heaven, and that was on black walnut. So, you know, so if you went to a buffet and they turned around and said, "Oh, we don't have prime rib, we only have lobster tonight," you know, I think you'll survive on lobster. And that's what, you know, these guys are doing, because when you have that many hosts that you can utilize, one's not going to make that big of a difference. What we do see, however, is that the ones that are feeding not on Atlantis are a little bit weaker and not as large. So it does come and will reduce their fecundity, so they won't have as many eggs, but they will survive. That's the unsettling part of that. The Tree of Heaven goes all the way up. This is Hudson Bay. You know, this is subarctic. So pretty much will hit most of our temperature and climate range here. You won't see them out in this part of the US, and I don't know if it's just they haven't looked, but that's the only map we have for tree of heaven, and it seems weird that you wouldn't really see them there. So our host, this is for in your yard, or if you are at a nursery, these are the ones to really look for, and this kind of tells you when to look for them as well. So when you're seeing rose is a big one, especially as nymphs, your perennials, grape is throughout the entire season from nymphs to adults. Tree of heaven, the same thing. Black walnut, when you're getting into your like third or so instar nymphs until October, that's a host. River birch, willow, sumac, definitely another one. And then you'll see red and silver maple. And again, when you look at why did they go from tree of heaven and now they're all over your red maples, is tree of heaven will senesce, which will go into hibernation roughly mid-September. It's going to be depending on the weather, but give a week or two and they'll start losing their leaves, and there's going to be no sap flow throughout the tree. So they're smart enough to go to where they can get a good supply of sap. So that's where you're going to see them go to these other trees. So feeding damage, they're noticing that on fruit trees and stuff, that now they're doing the dendrochronology and seeing is there any damage, and they're still looking. They're seeing some, yes, but is it going to actually harm the tree? And when they do these little with all the puncture wounds from the lanternfly, they come on up, which is also a source of potential source of some other infection. But what they're seeing in the dendrochronology is that the rings are a little smaller, and there still has to be more research to kind of see what's going on there, if that's just a one-off, or is that really impacting all the trees in that way. And if you have a huge number on a tree, will that really hurt a mature tree? And like I said, the jury is still out on that. Economic damage, what we're seeing mostly for spotted lanternfly is still going to be your wild and cultivated grapes. There's vineyards in Pennsylvania that have lost 70 to 90%, 70 to 100% of their vines. And this is a combination of both the feeding damage. Then when they're feeding on the sap, they're taking that sugar that should go back into the roots at the end of the season, and they're ingesting that. And then with all those little holes in there, and then the winter itself with what they refer to as winter injury, you are going to see the decline of the vine itself. And now there's potential that it may vector a phytoplasm in grapes. So again, there's more research to be done on this, but we didn't believe before that it could vector any diseases because it doesn't have really strong mouth parts. As I mentioned earlier, the economic is going to be the interference with trade, both nationally and internationally, and then adding additional costs through chemical treatment and phytosanitary certificates and other compliance costs and shipping costs. It will just add to the cost of just doing business. Ecological. And this is something that I think is more insidious than we realize, is that when you see these heavy populations, they are, excreting all this honeydew, and you can see this all in here. And all that honeydew is just sugar water. And that sugar water is a great growing media for the sooty mold. And the sooty mold is going all into the understory, the native understory, and it's impacting it two ways. It's the covering of the leaf material, and so you're not getting the same photosynthesis. you're also, have that sooty mold growing on it as well. So you have, a fungal infection on the plant, and eventually you're going to lose that understory, and it's going to be a way for other non-natives to come in there and, further displace our both native plants and whatever is in the forest that are surviving on those, whether it's birds, or I know in certain areas you'll see reduction in the salamanders and other things like that. For the rest of us, for the homeowners, this I think is going to be our biggest issue, is going to be the nuisance damage. This is a Trex deck. Right here is your honeydew and that sooty mold. This is show you kind of cleaned it off. It still will stain Trex. This is what's all that the sooty, both sooty mold and the honeydew on the plants themselves around your home. And then the increase of bee and wasps and other things, stinging insects that are going in there for the honeydew, that they're getting a quick free meal out of that. So, we talk about join the battle, beat the bug. This is kind of your, when to do it and what to do. And all this can be found on our badbug.nj.gov website with additional information. But if you were looking at, what should I be doing at this point and of the year, this is a great resource. And, also look on what pesticides, you can use, because just because, we're saying to use it, you may not have access to it. And other things that are listed, if it says that it is good for plant hoppers, it can be used for lanternflies, because lanternflies are the plant hoppers. So back to the control, neonicotinoids are at the end of this year will not be no longer sold in like Home Depot to the public. I still think there's some issues regarding landscapers and tree people, but we have pyrethrins, we have organophosphates, and then there's a lot of other things that you can use, as it is listed on there. Less insecticidal soaps and things like that. So it's not always you have to use a strong chemical, but when you look at the population, we have to kill over 93% to reduce the population. At 93%, the population will stay status quo. Over 93%, you will see a reduction, which is a really big lift, and that's why we're out here talking to you, as well as working with all the green industries and subsequent industries and stakeholders, county governments, to reduce this and help everybody pitches in. We may achieve that 93% or better. What are we using when we are going out for USDA and NJDA? We're using dinotefuran as a systemic. We're using bifenthrin as a contact. Golden oil, which is only for egg masses. But again, like anything, it is a registered pesticide. So using high percentage of the golden oil can be phytotoxic to your tree. And we are no longer using herbicides per se, because like I said, if you remove one of those 172, it may not have such a huge impact, and versus us taking those same resources and spraying the insects themselves. So removing tree of heaven really does not create the biggest population knockdown as we had hoped. So timing, nymphs we're looking at again is that contact insecticide, and that's spring through late June. For later instar nymphs and early adults, we're using a systemic. We're only putting that on tree of heaven, and that's going to be after it blooms, while there is no bees or other pollinators present, and that's going to go through late June to early September. Adults, so that's going to be when the tree of heaven senesces, and we're going to go back to our contact insecticide, and that's going to go from mid-September to late November. And lastly is, our eggs, and we're using the golden oil, and that's going to be basically December to April. One other thing that we have in our arsenal that I think is a really good resource, we do have how to make them. I can tell you how to buy them as well, are these circle traps. They were a weevil trap. What happens is that due to their biology, it's using their own biology against them. As they travel up in here, what happens is they go up into this bag, and the way we have it situated, it falls down into the bag. And as much as they're pretty strong, and again, like tribbles, they will die pretty quickly in the bag. We change the bag out every 2-3 weeks. That's more because it gets pretty nasty, as you can see in this one, with all the the sooty mold and the honeydew all over it. But that's all dead lanternflies in there, and it's a great way. You're not using any lures, you're not using any pesticides, nothing harmful, and it's a great way to do it in your own yard. So we do have some native biocontrols that people are looking at. Lacewing, which is these two guys right here, and this is the nymph, and or the immature. And what we're looking at is this one goes after the egg. So they've been seeing a little bit of predation. And then we have our good wheel bug over here. Again, a great predator. It's a beneficial insect. Praying mantis, which they'll definitely chomp on them. Spiders. I know that we've got lots of people curious about the Juro spider, which is in the same family, Agriope. And then birds. So what we hear from birds, though, is that their corvids, which are your ravens and your crows and stuff, are pulling the back wings off. Those two bright colored wings. So it's kind of interesting. And again, it's preliminary information, and they have to do some more research on it. But we have something, but it's not going to do as much as we'd like. The next thing is our biocontrol. So they have an Anastatus orientalis, and that's what South Korea's been looking at. That is an egg parasitoid, and 30 to 40% is what you're seeing for them to go after the egg masses. And then this Dryanid, she's got these big, long raptorial arms right here, kind of like the praying mantis, and she grabs the nymph, and she's holding on to the nymph, and then underneath, she's using her ovipositor, which is a stinger, and laying these eggs right here under the wing bud. So, and then these eggs will feed on this nymph and eventually fall on off and kill the nymph and produce more wasps. Bio-Pesticides, entomopathogenic fungus. We have two that we're looking at, Bovaria bassiana and then Bacoa major. Both are native fungal pathogens that you'll find in the soil. They are, everywhere. I guarantee you have them all over your house and your yard. The only negative side about these, it is an organic substance. However, because it uses, it infects through the cuticle, the chitin, that any insect, this is a non-target specific way, but again, it's a way to get, rid of, big populations of lanternfly and, try not to do as much damage to our beneficial insects and pollinators. Some of the research, they looked at aerial sprays but the problem is this is a sap feeder. We're looking at like gypsy moth, which is, foliage feeder, and the chemical doesn't really reach where it needs to go as far as how the SLF feed, because, they're going through the sap. And so they're going to look at other ways. So an aerial spray is definitely not the way to go currently, unless they find a new chemical or new way to get more of that chemical in. I think it's around 5% of the chemical can, has the ability to get on the insect, and then less, truly gets on it because of all the foliage that blocks the chemical from going down. That, Bovaria bassiana, they're doing some studies, and anybody interested that may have a farm, I know we're looking at doing some test plots with USDA. So if anybody's interested, please let me know. Another one is an entomopathogenic nematode. I work with these in the blueberry and blueberries, and basically it's nematode that are sprayed out. They're tiny, tiny, tiny. And what they do is they go through the spiracle, which is your breathing holes in the insect, because they don't have lungs or nostrils, but they have all these little holes on their body, and they go through in there, and then they start feeding from inside and creating more nematodes. So it's again a good way to go after larger populations. And the next one I think is one of my favorite ones, is this bacterial endosymbionts. And I mentioned earlier, they have three separate, so 240 million years ago, these bacteria had a symbiotic relationship with spotted lanternfly itself, the one we're working with. And they created these three organs, and what they're seeing is that the organs actually will swell up when the female is gravid or pregnant. And then as the eggs are going to be released, those organs shrink up, and all the bacteria from those organs go into the eggs. And then from there, it's basically like how puppies get the correct stomach things from their mom and from the milk. It's the same concept. And so they have that same bacteria. So when they feed, they can produce the amino acids and proteins. The last one is this Vercillium wilt. And this one it's native to the US. It seems like some good ways to get rid of tree of heaven. It is a way to control tree of heaven. We did find an insect called Agrillus magnifrons that feeds on tree of heaven. So it'd be a good way of introducing this wilt disease. However, again, we don't want to be releasing things and having trees drop all over, but it's a way to reduce anything in the area, and possibly, again, a tool in the toolbox to win this war. So what are we doing? We are in New Jersey. We are working with our county parks. Recently, I was at the Mosquito Commission this week, as well as County Public Works Department, to see, can we join forces? Is there a possible way where we provide the chemical or other assistance, and these organizations can go out and spray with their personnel? They're trained pesticide applicators, and that's what we're exploring right now, and hopefully we'll be doing that this summer. We are doing some research programs to better understand the biology and the behaviors. So, we're always involved with that. We work with Rutgers and other universities to help, find locations, and or in the past we were checking traps and collecting data. And with any organization that's willing, would like to help, we're happy to do talks, as well as provide them information and scraper cards. That I mentioned, we have a lot of scraper cards. So definitely, and she's laughing. She poor Lori is getting less gas mileage in her car because I put so many scraper cards in there. But so what are we? USDA is doing some studies this year. So all we're looking for is help to find these areas. No one's really, they're going to have their own staff do the research, but we're looking for pairs of tree of heaven in low density areas, triplets of tree of heaven, again, in low density areas, pairs of maple, because they want to compare. Last year was black walnut. This year is going to be maple, in Tree of Heaven, it's going to be red sugar and silver. So if you know that, again, in low density areas, and low density, I guess I should clarify that, that means low density of spotted lanternfly, not the low density of the trees, but low density of spotted lanternfly. And then high density insect collection areas. So if you know anywhere where that, there's lots of them and no one's spraying for them, that's the important, all the trees as well as the insects, we don't want them any interaction with any pesticides, as well as, here's the definition. It's low density is an area that one may not have known SLF population, but have been found within 1 to 5 miles. Larger stands of Tree of Heaven is better. It gives us more options to basically do similar DBH, which is diameter of breast height, their health and environmental conditions as well. So those are the kind of the parameters, but we're just looking, we can't be everywhere and we have some ideas, but the more sites we have, the more data we can get and have a better understanding of this, pest. So I know we were talking, the last thing I wanted to mention, I know Lori wanted to talk about emerald ash borer, and I'll just give you the quick update. It is really everywhere. I get calls frequently. In 2020, January 2020, the federal government lifted all its regulations and on emerald ash borer because it's in 36 states right now, and it just wasn't going to get smaller. So with all those reduction in any regulations, I know a lot of people are curious of what we're doing. And we're continuing on the releasing of several parasitoid wasps. And what they do is they will either go after the egg or the larvae, and they inject their eggs inside them, and they feed on them. And so this year we should be going out and looking to see if they're established. Generally takes 3 to 5 years for them to be established. And since we're doing it throughout the state, we're going to go in, over the next couple of years and see how we're doing as far as the establishment of these 3 parasitoid wasps. And there's not a lot on the EAB front. And if you do have questions, please, my email will be at the end. And the thing that I wanted to make you aware of, and this is basically due to climate change, as well as what we refer to as a range shift, and is this browntail moth. And this browntail moth has these nice little hairs right here. They're also all over the, their egg case, and you see them, they cluster this in numbers and create these big webs of these hairs. And you gotta say, they're pretty cute. I mean, look at that face up there. It's a pretty cute moth. But the problem is those hairs actually have venom, and this moth, has been found, late 1800s, I think 1890, in Maine, and it's stayed up into that area for the last 120 years or so. Furthest it went down is into like Massachusetts, and I think the northern part of Connecticut. And with that, we're seeing now things are warming up, and things that in the north can start coming down, as we've seen the southern pine beetle, which is now going, because of it being warmer in the north, are going further north. So as things are coming kind of down and things are going back north, we're worried that this may be, eventually impact us here. So something to keep your eye out for. And it's an invasive species. That's 1890 at Somerville, Massachusetts. We have had it for a while. And what happened is that when they brought in this a parasitic tachnid, it's a fly, and they went up to counter the gypsy moth, they had collateral damage on the browntail moth. So you see that, you know, as that was introduced, it kind of reduced its population, kind of kept it at bay. But again, due to climate change, you may see this range shift, and they may be able to, you know, come down further than expect or anticipated. So just something again to keep your eye out for. It's not as I don't know if you can see it really well, but all this red on this woman's neck. So these hairs, they're toxic to human, causing poison ivy like itchy rash for up to weeks, several weeks. And it's due to the mechanical and the chemical irritation. So the hair itself, you know, is the irritant, and it's got little things that kind of keep it, you know, like it breaks off, like the oh my God, they're in the sea urchins, you know, like you step on one of those and little pieces break in you, and that's what's going to happen as well. And which I was really surprised that the toxins can stay potent for up to 3 years. That's out of, you know, blowing around and you know, so it's not a thing that you would really want, you know, in your neighborhood. And again, the caterpillars as well have these hairs, and you know, will kind of pack a wallop like our some of our asps, you know, or caterpillars with the same kind of hairs. And this is when we get to the end. So this is where I'm happy to take all your questions. And yes, I can't wait for the Juro spiders to get here, because you're looking at possible, you know, way to eat the lanternflies. Plus, they're pretty cool looking.
Paul, I knew you were going to say that. Oh, too funny. So thank you. That was great information, great update too. You know, I forgot to mention you were at the Spotted Lanternfly Forum, right? Was that last week or the week before?
This week in March.
Okay, yeah. So latest and greatest, was that people from throughout the country that were there pretty much?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I think that, and throughout, you know, like you get it, other people are concerned in other countries as well. So I'm sure it not only was the US, but, you know, some of the researchers and other people that would be, you know, there. So.
Yep. Got it. Okay, so there are some questions in the Q&A, so I'll pop those. Some of them you've already answered, but I'll go kind of in the order they were asked because they follow the presentation a little bit. So again, I think you asked this, but Peg was asking, beneficial pest program. Are you working on any other insect that will kill, eat, or destroy the spotted lanternfly? And I think it's the parasitic wasp.
Yeah, it's the parasitoid wasp we're looking at. Like anything, they have to find it. It won't harm any other insects. You don't want to release something that's going to, you know, impact our beneficial insects. And then it's got to go through all of that and, you know, come on out. That's all. Right now, I don't know if the Dryanid, it's great with spotted lanternfly, but they also have to check it against everything else. So just because it works well with one doesn't mean it's going to be, you know, play well with others, kind of, so to speak.
Right. Okay. And so Peg also asked, spotted lanternfly, do they ever sting people? And will they affect perennials, flowering shrubs, and grasses? Again, I think that wonderful chart actually talked about, you know, the different plant materials, but they don't really hurt people, right? Other than being annoying, right?
Well, I mean, I think that, yeah, you know, the worst thing that they do is, you know, they put out all that honeydew and it's excrement, and you'll see it looks like raining when it's heavy areas. So people use umbrellas. But as far as that proboscis where they're feeding from, that cannot penetrate the skin. So don't worry about that. They do not bite it at all.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, they're just very annoying, and they seem to like to, for whatever reason, land on you, right? So it's crazy. So back to the quarantine at the very beginning. So I know there's only 13 counties. So the question is, like, why not something like Ocean County when they're all over like, why did they stop, and does it matter?
You know, that is for the people above me to decide. You know, I follow their orders. You know, and it could open up to other counties. It takes a long time. It's roughly a year. So we just saw them at Ocean County last year. At the very end of last year, I saw them in Ocean County in Monmouth, where I live. And so it's one of those things. It's a year. We still have to have comment period. So it's not a quick, we can't just turn around and change those, because it's got to go through all the regulations and comment periods. And so, and I don't know if, you know, at this point, if it's all over, we know it, do we need to quarantine anymore? So that's for, you know, people above me to make those decisions.
Makes sense. So Diane was asking, she has a cistern and collects roof water for drinking, etc. And there are trees nearby. Will the mold affect her water?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I can't answer that, because I mean, sooty mold is in your environment all the time. So, you know, it's present, you know, but the only thing I would wonder is if there's a lot of lanternflies and they are, you know, above this, you know, the cistern, that, you know, I would talk to a you know, water hydrologist, or, you know, I just don't know.
Yeah. There's got to be a resource out there to figure it out, but yeah.
You know,
okay.
Our labs test for chemicals in the water, you know, mostly radioactive and things, but yeah, hydrologist would probably be the best, you know, person to ask.
Yep, wonderful, thank you. So Peg was asking if the egg masses overwinter, and we all know for a fact that they do, absolutely. So the egg masses that are produced laid in the fall, come spring, right? March, April, May, they're the ones that hatch.
Yep.
And there's never going to be enough frozen days, below temperature days, to really destroy those egg masses over the winter, correct?
No, so I know that they're looking at because there has to be a threshold range. That Penn State and USDA, their ARS, which is Agricultural Research Services, are looking to see if there's any of that. And, you know, also the eggs, all insect eggs have basically like a glycol in them to keep them from freezing. And, you know, it's like glycol, I mean, very similar. So to get to that point where it's going to freeze or impact or rupture, you know, the egg, you know, what we're doing with when we put the oils on there is that there's little teeny pores in the egg, and it allows it to breathe. And you know, you have gas exchange. Those clog up those little pores, and then what will happen is that you basically suffocate it. That's how the golden oil works.
Okay, and Paul, Marge actually had a question about the golden oil, because that's the first I've heard of it. Is this something that homeowners are able to use, or is no? Okay, so you did mention it was a registered pesticide, correct?
It was a registered pesticide. You'd have to have a pesticide applicator's license, because it still has other things in it. And I know when we're using it, you know, you have to have a full face mask shield on there, just in case it you know, any of the little droplets gets in your eyes, you know, on your skin. So it's still, even though it is, you know, in that same like dormant oil and your summer oils and things like that, it is still a registered pesticide and you know, treated as that.
Okay, so for homeowners, the best bet is the scraper cards.
Yeah, or the scraper cards, making the tool. And I know the new recommendations are out, and they do have some, you know, organic, you know, some of the hort oil in there too.
Okay, wonderful. So I did put a link to the Department of Ag website, the homeowner tab, which has the at the very bottom, the method to make the circle trap and all sorts of information, the timelines and all that is on there. And I think even some of the tools, right, for homeowners to use is on that link.
Yeah, and I have to update it. So I know our pesticide needs to be updated to the current one. So
Okay. Okay.
You know, there hasn't been a lot of changes, but you know, we still like to get the most accurate.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll include a link to that webpage when I send the recording of this webinar out to everybody. So, so you'll get that stuff, and you'll have the way to make the circle trap in there too. It's funny, somebody put in the chat, the last time we did this, Paul, I talked about using the water bottle to, when it's time for the adults, that they'll literally, if you put the opening of a plastic water bottle over them, they'll just like jump into it and they can't get out. So I shared a video with that last time we did this, and they commented that it actually works. Of course, you're only getting a few at a time, but every little bit helps, right?
If you look on YouTube, they have all kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Steve was saying how they love Concord grapevines as well, and they seemed quite active and healthy. So that's, I guess, part of the lovely grape thing we have to watch out for.
Both like, you know, your more viticulture grapes, you know, for wine and table grapes, as well as your wild grapes. For beer, hops, they're like things that are vine. I mean, the one picture I have is it's feeding on poison ivy. So cucumbers, squash, certain melons. It likes viney, Chinese bittercress. You know, it's a weed. Viney things are kind of their favorites. So
crazy. So Laura was wondering about can spotted lanternfly affect redbud or hawthorns?
I know affect in which way?
Laura, you're probably thinking feeding? Maybe clarify if you can put in the Q&A clarification on what your question is.
We're not seeing any mortality or really any injury on mature trees, but again, what they saw last year, they did studies, and it was mostly in fruit trees, apples and peaches, and you'll see each individual hole from the insect in the, you know, when they take off the bark, and it's just all dotted. So makes you think if they're reducing, you know, the sugars that the tree would use later on, as well as, you know, those little injuries, there's probably some negative impact, especially when there's 1,000, you know, when you see a lot, but that's for the researchers to figure out.
For sure. Okay, so Laura, if you need more clarification on that, just pop something additional into the Q&A and we'll go from there. I know we talked about some of the other predators that, and that picture that is on the screen right now is one of them. What's the latest on birds eating them? I think you may have mentioned this. Is this good? Is it working, not working?
It's still really limited, and there's one researcher at Penn State that's working on it. I can't think of her name. And she's the one that said the curious behavior, and all she's really seen on birds eating them are the corvids, blue jays, crows, and you know, they're all I mean, not the smartest, but, you know, like, but they're the ones that learn how to, you know, like the magpies that, you know, had trackers on them and they're taking the trackers off. So they're intelligent birds.
Yeah.
That, and they're taking the hind wings off. So she found that really interesting, that red wing is telling them, So when they go to eat them, they take off that back, you know, that hind wing. So is that just as they're learning, or is that something that, you know, does it have something in there that we don't know? you know, that again, she's doing more research. And unfortunately, because the hardest thing about the insect is you can't rear them in a lab well enough now to do the full research like you would, let's say, with fleas or ticks or other pests. And because they're also really dainty in certain ways that, you know, don't have a good way to feed them, and you know, it's too hot, too cold, you know, other things that they'll die on you, and you know, then you have other issues with, you know, developing colonies. So every time these researchers are doing it, it's during the time of the year that the insect's available and that life stage. So it becomes challenging for them because they can't replicate anything until the following year. We could rear these in a lab well, we would probably have, you know, better answers and faster, but this is part of their you know, their whole thing, that how cryptic they are.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So more to be learned, as always. So we talked about the honeydew being an attractant for bees, right, and other I guess pollinators. So so Diane wanted to know, is that kind of a good thing? And then are we looking to kill off more tree of heaven? I have an answer, but I want to hear it from you first.
Well, I mean, they're producing that honeydew. However, you know, it's negatively impacting your understory, and that's, you know, once that's gone, it's not going to come back. And you know, it's your non-natives that are quick establishers and will come in. Is it your stilt grass, your multiflora rose, your barberry, like those things will come in there and take the place of what were natives and change the soil chemistry, as well as, you know, what's available as food for the animals that use that as their home. So you know, that's a negative impact. I know it's that weird thing that, you know, beekeepers, you know, our suggestion is that, you know, you know, do your hives early, and by September, either you make your own spotted lanternfly honey when you remove the honey, or use that honey to feed the colony, because it does create a unique smoky taste when and this is the bees, the honey bees that are taking the you know, the honeydew from the spotted lanternfly and using that as their food source and to make honey. So there's a, you know, is it a niche market? Yes, for the people, and it's kind of cool, you know, to have spotted lanternfly honey, but is that what everybody wants? And so that, he said, I think again, that's going to be based on your industry and your preference. And the tree of heaven, I think everybody would love to see it go away. You know, it would be better left in its own country. However, you know, it is, you know, for all of us that grew up on Bugs Bunny, it is the tree that grows in Brooklyn. Where we all first saw that book was on Bugs Bunny, and it is the tree. Kind of
Yeah. Plus the fact that since they now don't need tree of heaven to complete their life cycle and lay eggs, we could get rid of all of them and they're still going to be around, right? So it's like you said, your management now, your focus isn't necessarily on getting rid of tree of heaven as it relates to spotted lanternfly. It's more on egg masses and getting rid of you know, at different life stages of the actual bug.
Yep. You know, said kind of striking, you know, the iron when it's hot, and you know, looking at, we can get a whole bunch of nymphs and using a contact, and you know, they're, because they have such a small barrier between the chemical and their bodies, that skin, they're highly vulnerable. You know, once they produce that exoskeleton, it takes a little bit more to kill them as a result.
Yeah, so that'd be a good time question, or a time to just approach Peg's question. Are there any concern about some of the chemicals and materials that we're talking about tonight migrating into water sources? Just probably good to address that, how that's done, how you guys are safe.
Yeah, we follow EPA guidelines to the letter. We do not, I mean, there's also how much, chemical can be sprayed on a, a property, it's based on the acreage and all that. We are always erring on the side of caution, never, doing anything outside of what's legal and correct. And, all you're going to do is damage things by either phytotoxicity. We strict by the letter and by the law. And that's what we encourage everybody else. So if 2 tablespoons kills them, 4 will not kill them any faster or more. 8 will definitely not do anything and probably will kill your tree. So, the chemical company gives you those guidelines because, they did a lot of research in that. And as much as we think that adding a little bit more is going to do a better job, it will not, trust me.
Yeah. Yeah. More is not better in this case, for sure. So that's good. Okay. Diane asked for directions for the circle traps. I think it's great. She's going to do it as an activity for her plants group. Again, I posted it as a link in the chat, but I will include it in the follow-up email with the recording of this. So, and if you can't wait for that, go to the New Jersey Department of Ag website, click on, they have a spotted lanternfly hot topics, and you click on that and there's a link for homeowners. And circle traps. I think, is there even a video down there? There might be, right?
And it said you can buy all the material at Home Depot and make your own. And then, for people, it's Great Lakes IPM.com sells them. So,
already made traps. Great Lakes IPM.com.
The only thing that you would probably need to get is the bag, and you can, do whatever on the bag. They normally would come in as I think even they have it, whether you're using them for weevils or for lanternfly. But normally when they were first designed, it was like a kind of like the thing that pretzels come in, like that kind of
big, heavy plastic thing. Okay. Excellent. So this is a question, and I hear this a lot. Is it true that the egg masses are laid mostly 10 feet up and higher?
Yes. So
okay.
80 to 90% of egg masses are they have it as 3 meters or 10 feet on the tree. So, but no matter, so I showed you that all those numbers. So if you get rid of one female, and she can lay 30 to 50 eggs per egg mass, and she lays 3. So you're looking at 90 to 150. So that's, even if you took the middle and go, okay, we killed, by getting rid of one, you're not going to see 100 of them next year. So every time that you, remove is going to be just that many more that you will not see. So everyone's worried about just, squashing one, but we want to say that everyone counts. I guess it's like a penny saved is a penny earned, but this has better returns.
There you go. Very good. Very good. Okay, there was also a comment in the Q&A about last year they didn't see as many spotted lanternfly in their 25-acre woodlot as they did the first year. Now they had killed and removed many of the tree of heaven that had sprouted up in just the last few years. But we had mentioned, I think in another webinar, that it seems like there may be some sort of cyclical trend to them coming back. Like they were really bad in, Hunterdon County, and then like the next year they weren't. Is there any rhyme or reason, or is that still being worked on?
Well, that's being worked on, and it is a bit of a phenomenon that everybody's experiencing, Pennsylvania as well as us. And since we're the first two to get it, and they're not sure if with invasive biology, that leading edge of the insects, that population tends to be high, and that's why you're seeing such high numbers. But you're looking at it in a small swath of area, and now there's some saying, well, if they dispersed more, it will seem like less, but there's still as many there. if you're following me. So like instead of it in like a ½ acre area, now it's over 10 acres. There's the same amount of insects. However, because they're over a broader area, they're still trying to figure that one out. Everybody wants to know, you know, because you're seeing more egg masses, you're seeing more insects, but then you're not seeing as many as you did in those, you know, and it could be just certain biology. You know, one of the things that they never had the swarming effects like in South Korea, like we're seeing in the US. That's completely new behavior for them. Same with a lot of the flight that's going on here in the United States compared to, you know, the research done in South Korea. They're not as you know, active flyers there. So you know, why is that? And again, so this is that mystery wrapped in a riddle and an enigma kind of thing. But you know, they're hopefully they'll have some more answers this time next year, because I know that's one of the things that is a hot topic for the researchers. Like, where did they go in the where they first found them? And it doesn't seem like there's many, but that may not be the case either.
Got it. Got it. So we'll find out more soon. So quick, just a couple more questions. I wanted to also get to a little bit of with the other two insects that we talked about tonight. Roger has a few acres of tree of heaven on a steep hillside of a city park. They were trimmed down last fall and they found thousands of nymphs. Ouch. What is the spray that they can use to kill these trees that won't hurt other beneficials?
That's the hard thing. It's going to be more on timing than anything else. And I think it's not necessarily this, you know, like if you go out early and get the nymphs before you have a lot of other predators coming out. And then also, you know, like going early and scraping egg masses. That's going to be, you know, like there's not a one and done for spotted lanternfly. I mean, we all, you know, kind of one of all of our dreams. However, and I said one of the things too on that is I know people who are spraying their yards, and we've gotten some upset customers. And so a woman was going to have a big wedding in her yard, and she was, you know, wanted to spray her yard, so she did. She did it roughly a week before she was going to have guests, because she didn't want any residual chemicals and all that. But all her neighbors were not sprayed, you know, and they're still moving in. So the company did kill quite a number. However, that time period between when the residual didn't work anymore and more insects were coming in. So you got to remember, if you're doing things like that, this insect is definitely not a one and done. So if you do your backyard, or you choose to do something, remember all around you, they're still going to be coming in, because you didn't get the ones on your neighbor's property, or you didn't get the ones that are, you know, 400 feet away that are moving towards you. But yeah, it's kind of crazy, but those are the things to keep in mind. That, you know, so I have people that spray it and go, look I spray, and a week later they're there. I'm like, well, they're not the same ones.
Yeah, right. Geez. So indoor events, there you go for now. So Diane had a question back to, you know, the test trees that you were looking for. And I know I put an email out to people. And if you hadn't heard from anybody as far as the research that the USDA wants to do, I'm happy to put that out again if you think that would help. But Diane said she has some test trees on her woodland. She's in Pennsylvania. Should she reach out to you?
Yeah,
or
I can forward it to Kelly and her team.
Okay, so Diane, send Paul an email. His address is right there on the screen. So thank you for that. Okay, so Ron wants to know best time to scrape.
Now. I guess it's when you want to get out of the house, and you know, December through, you know, say For me, it's when it's a little warmer because I just don't like the cold weather. But I think it's going to be a winter activity, and you want to be outside, and it's a nice day, and you want to go on out and knock as many off as you can, or get a group out there, and might sound, I know people are doing it. So, and the more you do, the more, the less we'll have.
There you go. And I do believe that wonderful graph that you had shown in your presentation is on the website. So the link that I sent on the chat, and also we'll send in the email, does have that timeline. So for scraping versus treatment, all that kind of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about honeydew and sooty mold. Is there a way to wash it off? What's the best way to wash it off?
I joked, and if you're in a heavy area, I would definitely consider, hiring somebody for power washing. They sell, actually there's a really nice one that's a battery operated one. Ego, I think, makes it.
Oh, nice.
But the remember that, all the different things they have, outside bleach. So make sure if you're doing that, you really want to hit it with, like a soap and something else. And I would talk to, the people there that work with it, all the time, just because everybody's homes are made of different materials. So I don't want to say, use this, and they're going to tell you how to dilute it, because the sooty mold will stain. I mean, if it can stain Trex, it can stain anything.
Yeah.
And think about all your nice, furniture that are out there, and the umbrella, everything turns black. And, you're going to be kind of fastidious on keeping your outdoor stuff covered or cleaned, and, or stored away until you're using it, because otherwise you will be cleaning quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. And then just to comment again, or there's a comment in the chat, the Q&A about that 10 feet above ground thing. And just a warning, and this is a good one, is that, you shouldn't be climbing the side of your house if you're not, be careful about it. Don't be foolish about what you're doing. And if you can't, then hire a professional.
Anything, we're just giving you where the researchers have found the most thing. We are definitely not encouraging anybody to go, stand on anything, stand on both feet on the ground, go down from there, to the bottom of the tree, but anything above that, it becomes any bit of dangerousness to yourself or anybody else, we're not encouraging that.
Yeah. And the scraper cars are not allowed to be used in any dangerous situations, right? Yeah. There you go. Right. And again, every little bit helps. So, whatever you can do is helpful. So another person was saying, well, what about cutting black walnut, since we're concerned that they're also a tree that they need in order to complete the life cycle. But thoughts on that?
We want to keep black walnut. It's a beautiful tree. And, again, let's say if we got rid of all black walnut, that doesn't mean that, they still now have 170, things to feed on. So right. By eliminating any one thing, it's not showing that it's going to make a difference. And the one thing that it did co-evolve on over millions of years, the tree of heaven, we remove it and it has some impact on it, on its health and how many eggs it can produce and things like that, but it doesn't stop them from producing, reproducing.
Right. And we're never going to get rid of all the tree of heaven anyhow. So
no, and so to remove something a native is definitely not the way we want to go anyway.
Okay. Yep. Let's keep our black walnut. So I'm going to do a final question. Again, a lot of the information that we talked about tonight is on the website. I'll be sure to post the link. Just wanted to also ask Andy if he had any questions related to spotted lanternfly to chime in. When should the circle traps be put together and placed so that we catch them? When do they start doing that whole climbing up the tree thing?
I would I think your best time, just because of when, and is when you're looking at the third and fourth instar for nymphs, because they're going to be going on Tree of Heaven. They're going to be a little bit bigger to see. The other ones are really small. So let's say end of June.
End of June. Okay. Have them up by the end of June.
Okay. Let's say, yeah, like third week to end of June, that time period would probably be your, the best. And it catches nymphs as well as
Oh,
so.
okay, perfect. Get those circle traps for sure. And any new tree plantings that spotted lanternfly might not want to feed on? Like if we're going to plant trees, anything in particular that you'd prefer us to plant?
Nothing that I'm aware of. And I want to get the list that, Lawrence Bittinger worked on that has 172,
Mm-hmm.
because there's stuff in there that, we had added, I had added. And so it kind of gives people a better idea of, what to look at. And again, if you're a landscaper or you go, I could use this one, and you go, oh, look at that's a heavy one, or I could use this one and it's, a little less. So, we do know that they don't really feed on pines. They can lay their eggs on pines, but they don't necessarily feed on them. Nothing that, they taste them, I think, but that's about it.
Got it. Anything else, Andy, for spotted lanternfly?
Great presentation as always, Paul. Thank you very much. A lot of good questions, a lot of good answers, tremendous amount of good information. So thank you very much.
I
appreciate it. So just real quick with the EAB, if I get calls every now and then with Forestry Association about, in towns where they're cutting a bunch of trees, and why are they cutting trees? We need more trees. Why are they cutting them? Ash trees need to go, right?
Well, if they are dead, they're going to be coming down on their own. Right now, they used to have a 2 and 3 year, before they'd really come down. And who wants a chance, at 2 years with all the nor'easters that have been coming through, all these storms, tornadoes, I tell people, take them down, so you don't have to worry about anything bigger. If they're dead, they're dead. Like if they're still, if you have, 70% or more of your canopy, which means that 30% or less is not there, you can treat it. Anything over that 32%, as far as canopy loss, you're not really going to get the same, bang for your buck. And this is a long process. So, we don't want to see trees removed either. None of us do. However, for safety reasons, it's number one. It's not going to make that big of a difference. If the tree is mostly dead, it's dead. So let's, make sure that no one else, gets hurt in this process.
Right.
So,
if you see the blonding on the tree, which is, I see it all every day when I'm driving around, it's gone, right? The tree is not salvageable for the most part.
When you see that blonding, that means such a heavy infestation and the woodpeckers are going through there, more than likely, yes, it is not salvageable, but you'd have to look at it. And again, that's where you can utilize your tree experts, your certified tree experts to come in and tell you. They're going to be the ones that can evaluate and look at the buds and go, okay, we're you have 29% or whatever. They're better at this than me, and can give you better guidance because they're physically there on the ground looking at your tree.
Perfect. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that since I get a lot of calls about that. So on to our nice new moth that you mentioned at the end. Haven't seen any, which is a good thing. If somebody was to actually see one of those cute little buggers, what should they do? Call the Department of Ag, reach out to you?
I mean, if they see it and they can get it, that would be great. I mean, do remember that, you know, we do have other white moths.
Mhm.
So don't, you know, but it's one of those things, look at the white and then that, you know, that brown
Brown.
on it. And you know, kind of looked like that one picture, kind of looks like the dragon from Never Ending Story a little bit. That white cute dragon. But the but yeah, we're just, you know, I see that as, you know, I mentioned beech leaf disease in the past, and I saw this week Canada is realizing that they're having a your you know, jumping worms, your Asian jumping worms, your snake worms are now, they're seeing a problem in their boreal forests, and they're worried about them. So all these little things are adding to a bigger, you know, picture. So again, this is more for people as well as the trees. And I know that's my dog, sorry, is that oh my, he's in UMass. He studies them. He studies winter moth and the browntail moth, and he's literally the expert at UMass, and I should know who he is because my uncle taught all his kids.
That's cool.
Yeah, so Joe Alkington. So Joe Alkington is really, he's probably the, you know, he's super smart guy, and he is like, would be my resource and person I would tell you if you needed to contact anybody that could identify it, he would be the person.
Fantastic. And so final thing is Doris wants to know what the scientific name is for our new browntail moth friend.
I'm going to let
It's
you
on the slide.
It is. I'm not going to. It's been a long day, and I think I'm going to murder it. That's the. It's in the family of Eubidae, and it should be. So I had the scientific name. That is the tablet.
Okay, that's all right. We can include it in our follow-up with the recording. We'll include the, yeah, or Google it, right? And I think it'll be good if we actually include a link, because what I don't want to have happen is the New Jersey Department of Ag getting a bunch of calls for something that's not here, you know, so.
It's one of those things, as, you know, you're seeing more up north, you know, up in Maine, and it doesn't mean that it couldn't get down here. And so I like to kind of keep my eyes out on things early enough that, you know, we know what it is if we should find it.
Yep, and we appreciate that, and I will always listen to you with that from now on. So it's all good. It's all good. Okay, so I'll just wrap it up by saying, if anybody does want any of the scraper cards, call Paul. No, only kidding. We have some, so we're happy to, you know, get them out to you, or do some way of distribution, but we're happy to do that. Anything else, Andy?
Very good presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, always appreciate it, Paul. Thank you for everybody that hung in there, and hopefully we'll see you again next month. We'll be putting out an email shortly with the topics. We got some good stuff coming up, and happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. And we will see you in the next month, which is, I guess, April. I was trying to think of what next month was. So, all right, thanks again. We'll see everybody soon. Paul, thank you again. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.